Good morning, it's Jonathan Barratt with the morning debrief for Friday, July the 30th. Obviously one day to go of the trading month, and boy has it gone quick. Lots of action across the board once again last night, and certainly some of the themes we've been talking about for some time, and quite happy really that a lot of it has actually gone the right way, although we're not as long as we'd like to be, which is always the case. Okay, let's have just a little bit of a wrap just after last night's activities. And let's have a look here. Dow Jones was down 30 points at 10,467. The S&P was down 4.6 at 1101, and the Nasdaq was down 12.87. The Stoxx was down 13 at 2752. The FTSE was down 5.7 at 5313, and the CAC was down 18 at 3,651. DAX was down 44, the largest and probably the weakest of the markets, down 44 at 6,134. On the futures market, the local SPI closed down 17 points at 4,477, obviously reflecting what was happening in the US on the weaker numbers. So let's have a look at some of the markets we've been following, and let's start obviously with the currencies. Let's just move that up a bit. There we go. Get a better workstation. As we always do, we start off with the dollar index, and the dollar index in itself basically still the dollar remains very weak. Although I'm sort of starting to feel that this trend, how far and fast could it, but it is a trend. We haven't had any signs that it'll turn around yet, so I guess that weakness is certainly there, and whether or not that becomes policy, it's unsure of. They're the highest, the dollar. We're down, we're mid to lower range, but I think expectations are that people feel that it can drip back into this support. Let's just see how that unfolds. As a result of that, obviously some movements in the currencies. The euro there is a 130.76, still looking good, and still actually looking as if there's a little bit more leg to stand on for it. But with this sort of move, I'd only look to trade that break to the top side, and that's through that 130.120. That would be an area there which you could probably add on if you like. The little Aussie battler, 90.03. A little bit tough here. It's all dollar related, and when I certainly look at that sort of chart from that low, it sort of feels as if eventually it might break through that top side. So just be a little bit cautious on that if you are in fact long dollars. Put your stops in at that level. As you can see, though, we do have some divergence on the daily chart, so I think it's something that we've just got to pay a particular attention to. So we mentioned the Aussie, the Euro, and the dollar index. Let's have a look at some of the commodities now, and let's have a look at crude. Crude, it was a bounce around. I think it is dollar related, but as I've been mentioning before, it has been in this range for some time, and in that range, you know, for a while. Eventually, it'll break out. There's no doubt about it. But it's just hit these doldrums. So a break on the top side through that 80.50, something we've always signalled, but at the moment, let's wait for that break. Momentum indicators are a little bit negative, so it just might be a little bit of an apparition. Copper continues to do well. Obviously, expectations there. One point of note, which I want to make pretty clear at the moment, that movement in Premier Wen's comments, his comments concerning looser monetary policy Q3, Q4 out of China, it's giving me a bit of a hint that they're ready for a little bit more of an expansionary move, and as a result of that, we've seen prices for iron ore, prices for coal actually tick up. Some of the moves we've seen there over the last couple of weeks, last week or two, has been for a solid gain in the spot prices for both those commodities. That's given me a bit of a lead that perhaps we haven't seen the end of what's happening in the market for these commodities, and perhaps things looking a little bit better bid than offered. Okay, so I mentioned crude there. Let's have a quick look at gold. Gold's bounced off that, obviously that 1160. Let's see how it works. We are a small long gold position, but as people have been gathering, I've got this bit of a negative view on it. The only thing I can say at the moment is that with the ETFs and liquidations in the ETFs, if the market's decided to move out of gold by about 10%, the combined ETF totals around 3,600 tonnes. So if the market did decide to move on it, just by 10%, now that puts about 1.1 million ounces on the market, and that's quite a lot. So it seems to be okay at the moment, but all I'd be wary of is perhaps a move through that 1158, as was the move we recommended through 1185, that you could be for a short and sudden move to the downside. But stop and reverses there are okay. Okay, just have a look. That's we mentioned gold. Let's just have a quick look at some of the softs. Wheat seems to be the big player at the moment. 627. That's the believe it or not, we're just about reaching the largest move since 1973. It's close to over a 33% move for the metal, for the commodity. And that's one of the largest gains we've seen since actually it was 1973 when Russia had concerns with America. Now, one of the big problems we've got here is that it's pulling up the whole complex, which is good for our positions. No problems there whatsoever. It has created a little bit of volatility, but just the way it closes, in my mind, suggests that it's very hard to go in and buy these commodities when, in fact, they have had such a strong move. The hard thing about it is you don't know whether it's going to end or whether or not it's going to keep on going. So with these sorts of things, just looking at this chart, this is very constructive. This is very constructive. This is interesting because you might see a little bit of profit taking, but overall I think you're taking profit in a market that perhaps you've got unseen circumstances developing. A bit of divergence there as well, probably indicating that the market might have a little bit of a correction. But given that the fundamental picture is still out there, given that the Ukraine is sort of deciding that it's not going to export its grains, they're the 5th largest export of grain, then you might see this trend over time continuing. But certainly a good move, and certainly glad we're on it. On the back of that, we're seeing corn lift again, and you can just see what the prices look like. Corn and soybeans are all looking quite good, and everyone knows who's been following the tweets, we have been long those for some time. So quite happy on that. There it is there. Corn looking okay, so quite happy on that front. Righty-ho, local market, sugar also is worth mentioning. Sugar's had a very terrific run again, 1946, and that's looking very solid as well. Look, with all these commodities, the weaker dollar is certainly helping our trades as well as the fundamentals behind it. That's just coming up now. As you can see there, still looks quite strong. On the local market, we'll just get a quick look at the local market and then see what numbers are out. 4,475 is where she closed, and just having a look at that, the hourly chart, let's have a look at the daily. Yeah, a little bit mixed here, and I expect it to trade in a mixed view. We might get a little lift out of the news from China, but overall I think perhaps a little bit of consolidation for the local market. In terms of economic news coming out, the big one here is Eurozone unemployment. Let's see what actually happens there. Still very high considering it's similar to the US, and also estimates for the CPI, I think quite important there, just to see whether there is any inflationary pressures, or is it still benign? Or are we still actually waiting for Asia to continue to pull us out of this recession? In the States, we've got GDP index, core employment costs, University of Michigan confidence, and the quarter-on-quarter GDP. So that's going to be quite important. Well, that's about it from us this morning. Obviously, there are a few themes we're following. The week has been good for some of our trading, so quite comfortable about that. And look, I might take some profit on a few things just because it is the end of the week, but certainly some good fundamentals starting to develop into some good trends. Well, that's about it from us. Hope you have a great day, and we'll certainly talk to you later.